Okay, so the next type of present tense stem changer that we have are E to I's, and they work just the same as E to IEs. However, the change that happens in the stem of the verb this time is going to be from an E to I, not from an E to IE. Also, unlike the E to IEs, where, like if I pull that up, let me show you actually. For E to IEs, when you saw this list, you'll notice that these guys are lumped together because all of their E's change to IEs before you add the endings to them. However, their endings all differ. Some of them are AR, some are ER, some are IR. But with E to I's, you'll notice that the verbs all end in IR. So you won't have to worry about having different endings. Just you'll have to remember how they change. So 2 verbs, we've got, well, 3 of them are pedir, to ask for or to request something. It's often used when ordering, like if you go to a restaurant, you might say, you know, hoy yo fui a Poblanos y pedí un taco, like I asked for a taco. Or normalmente cuando voy a Mo's, siempre pido una quesadilla. Okay. Repetir is to repeat or to have a second helping, and servir is to serve. Okay. So let's look at those. Okay, so the one that we're going to look at right now is servir. It's an E to IE, so that means that in its stem, this is its stem, and this is its ending. Okay, so that means this little E right here, this E right here, is going to change to an I. Okay, so when I conjugate servir, its stem would be, oops, can't see it in yellow, would be serb, okay? And since we're not dealing with nosotros and vosotros, because with these present tense stem changers, the stem change happens everywhere but for nosotros and vosotros, I would change my E to an I. So instead of it being serb, it's sirb now, and I add the O, sirbo. Okay. For 2, there's my stem. I'm going to change that E to an I, and I'm going to add an ES, sirves. For usted, there's my stem. I am going to change my E to an I, and I'm going to add an E, sirve. And here's my stem. I'm going to change my E to an I, and I'm going to add the E again. For nosotros, because it is in the green box, here's my stem. I'm going to leave it alone and just add the IMOS. Here for vosotros, here's my stem. I'm going to leave it alone, whoops, and add IS. For ustedes, because it's outside the green box, here's my stem. I'm going to change my E to an I, and I'm going to add the EN. And down here, here's my stem. I'm going to change my E to an I, and I'm going to add the EN. So this is how it sounds. It should be servir becomes sirvo, sirve, 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 servimos, servis, sirven, sirven. Okay, so the other type of stem change that we have are O to UEs. And here's a bunch of verbs that fall into that category. We've got volver, to return, to come back. Almorzar, to have lunch. Costar, to cost. Dormir, to sleep. Encontrar, to find. Jugar gets lumped with them as well. It's actually a U to UE, but because it's the only one that does that, and it also changes to a UE, they put it in there. Poder, to be able or can, like to be able, have the ability to do something. Recordar, to remember, and soñar, to dream. Okay, and so what happens here is for all of these guys, their O's are going to change to a UE before you add their appropriate ending. Okay, so you'll notice how I drew a box around the O so you can see, and the U for jugar, so you can see how they change. And notice again here that their endings are different. There's some that are AR, some that are IR, and some that are ER. So they get lumped together because what happens in their stem is the same, but remember that their endings are different, so make sure you use the right endings when you're conjugating. Okay, so we'll practice with almorzar first. It's an AR verb, so it gets the AR endings. So here would be almorz, that would be the stem if you take, and it would be an O to UE. So since this is not nosotros or vosotros, I'm going to change it to a UE and then add my O. And what I'll do is also draw, because remember we had this box, so if it's outside of the green box, you make the stem change. Okay, so here it would be whoops, I don't want it to be green. Almorz is my stem. I'm going to change that O to a UE, and I'm going to add the AS. Okay, then here, almorz is my stem. It's still outside the green box, and I would add the A. Almorz is my stem. I'm going to change my O to a UE because it's outside the green box, and add the A. Down here, here's my stem. I'm going to leave it alone because now I am within the green box, so it's almorzamos. Here, my stem is almorz. I'm still within the green box, so I'm going to leave it alone, almorzáis. Here I'm outside the green box, almorz, so I'm going to change that O to UE and add the ending. And here again, I'm outside the green box, almorz, I'm going to go back in, change my O to UE, and add the ending. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with dormir. The only difference is with dormir is that it's an IR verb, so I'm adding IR endings. So the middle is going to look similar to almorzar, but the endings are going to look different. So dorm is my stem. I change the O to a UE, and then I add the O, duermo. Here, dorm is my stem. I'm going to change the O to a UE, and I'm going to add the ending. Dorm again is my stem. I'm going to change my O to a UE and add the ending. Here, dorm is my stem. I'm going to change my O to a UE and add the ending. Down here, I am going to, dorm is my stem. I'm going to leave it that way because now I am inside the green box. So for nosotros, vosotros, I leave it alone. Dormimos. Vosotros, I leave it alone as well. Dormís. Okay. Then down here, dorm is my stem. I'm going to change my O to a UE and add the end, duermen. And dorm, I'm going to change my O to a UE and add the ending. Okay, so you'll notice how the changes look the same, and they look the same in the middle, but their endings look different. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some practice. It says, Antonio has invited his friend Ana Maria to visit him in Ciudad de Guatemala. Complete her explanation with the correct forms of logical verbs from the list, and you may use some verbs more than once. So it says, Antonio y yo blank hacer planes para el viernes. Okay, so Antonio y yo were thinking about making plans on Friday, so I would put pensar here. Okay, pensar is an E to IE verb. So what I have to ask myself here, should I make that change? So I'm going to get rid of my AR. I know that I'm going to be looking at my AR endings though, because this is an AR verb. Antonio yo is my subject. When it's a statement, which this is, it ends in a period. Typically, the subject of your sentence can be found before your verb, or that's usually where you find it. Antonio y yo isn't in my chart, but that's the same thing as saying Antonio and I, or nosotros. Nosotros is in our chart, and nosotros, if you remember, should be in the green box, which means I don't do anything to my stem here. So I'm going to leave pensar just the way it is. I'm going to leave the stem alone. So I would write, whoops. And then I would add the AR ending, because this is an AR verb. I would add the AMOS, pensamos. So Antonio y yo pensamos hacer planes para el viernes. Nosotros ir al cine. So I could use we want to go to the movie theater, which would be querer. Okay. Okay, querer is an E to IE stem changer. The subject of my sentence, the people who want to go to the movie theater. Again, this is a statement, so I'm looking before the blank. It's nosotros. If it's nosotros, I don't make the change, so I'm going to leave my stem the way it is. This is an ER verb, though, so I'm going to go over to the ER ending. So here's nosotros. I add EM away. S. Queremos. Antonio blank ver una película nueva del Salvador que se llama Sobreviviendo Guasapa. So we're going to say that Antonio wants to see this new movie, Sobreviviendo Guasapa. So if it's Antonio who wants, I'm going to put querer here. Again, querer is an E to IE stem changer. This time, who is it that wants to go as Antonio, not us, which is the same thing as saying he. So if I go, if it's he, if it's not nosotros or vosotros, I have to make that change. Here's my stem, but it's an E to IE. I would have to change that E to an IE, and then I would go over to he and add the right ending for an ER verb. Quiere. Antonio quiere ver una película nueva del Salvador que se llama Sobreviviendo Guasapa. Yo las películas francesas. So I prefer French films, pero Antonio no entiende francés, so he doesn't understand French. So I prefer, I'm going to put preferir, okay? It's an IR verb, so this time I'm going to be looking in this column right here. It's an E to IE stem, so this is my stem. I'm going to be looking here. It's an E to IE stem changer. Do I make the change? Well, it's a statement again. I look before the blank. The subject of my sentence is yo. Yo is not nosotros, so I do need to make the change. I need to change that E to an IE. And then if it's an IR verb, I add O. Prefiero las películas francesas, pero Antonio no entender francés. This time it's an ER verb, so I'm going to be looking in the middle. It's an E to IE. Who is it that doesn't understand French? That's Antonio, which is the same thing as he. So I am going to make the change. Here's my stem. I'm going to go over here and change that E to an IE. And because it's Antonio or he, and this is an ER verb, I'm going to add an E on the end. No entiende francés. Su madre que debemos jugar al tenis. So his mother thinks that we should play tennis. So I'm going to plug back in pensar. Okay. Who thinks that we should play tennis? His mother, or she thinks. Okay. This is, if you go back up here to pensar, it's an E to IE verb. So I'm going to go over. I am going to make the change because it's not we, it's the mother, she. So I'm going to change that E to an IE. And here's she, so I'm going to add an A. Su madre piensa que debemos jugar al tenis. Antonio, blank jugar al tenis. Pero yo no blank muy bien. So Antonio probably quiere. Antonio, he wants to play tennis. Or let's do poder. He can. So Antonio can play tennis, but let's see here. So Antonio can play tennis, but I can't play very well. So I'm gonna put jugar here. Okay, so if I go back up here for poder, it's an O to UE stem changer. Who is it that can play tennis? It's Antonio, the same thing as he, so I do need to go in and make my stem change. So I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so I'm going to make my stem change, which means, well, let me put it back. So that means I'm going to change my O to a UE. And then if it's he and it's poder, where is it? It's an ER verb, so I go over to the ER column for he, and I would add an E. Puede. Down here, jugar. Who is it that can't play well? It's me. I can't play well. That's still not nosotros, so I would make the change. So the stem for jugar is, here's jugar, so it's stem, hold on, let me move this over a little bit. Jugar. So its stem is J-U-G. If it's I, we are going to make the change, so I'm going to change that U to a U-E, and then the ending for AR would be an O.